So everything can be gridded and counted. Some of the tests look like this, and some of them have actual like little grids attached. But one way or the other, you'll be all set. Xavier, why is your phone in your hand? I don't know either. Bring it up here to me. You pick it up at the end of the day. All right, so number one, nobody's on an iPad, phone, computer. Everybody is focusing in on this practice test that we're all going to do great on. Okay, so problem number one. You may not recognize the equation as a hyperbola, but when it talks about asymptotes, you know that's what this is, I hope. This is a hyperbola. Where is the center? Negative 3, negative 5. X comma y. Negative 3, negative 5. Now, what does this 16 tell me? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? You're doing that on your graph paper, taking very careful notes so you can study. What does the 25 tell me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so then I'm going to build my box, following my grid lines on my graph paper, and I'm going to draw in my asymptotes. This is what gets graded, not your picture. So the picture is for you. Once you've got this done, now it's time to draw the curve itself. This is not the hyperbola, this is the box. So now we're going to draw the curve. So we gotta pay attention. Which way am I drawing it? Is this gonna be a sideways one or an up and down one? It's going to be sideways. So here we go. When you draw it, it just hits the edge of the box. And those 2 points where it hits the edge of the box are the vertices. They go in the V blank, the vertices blank. Okay, so there's 2 of them. This one is 1, negative 5, and this one is negative 7, negative 5. Would everybody agree with that? Does that match your picture? This axis right here that connects the vertices is called transverse. How long is that transverse axis? 8. Didn't you count back and forth 4? This guy is your conjugate axis. We don't really do anything with it but build the box. But that one is how long? 10, because we went up and down 5. Your foci, just like with the parabola, are always inside the curve. So your foci are going to be in here somewhere, inside the branches of the hyperbola. You could tell me where they were if you knew how far away they are from the center. Remember, everything gets measured from the center. The center's the starting point for everything. So we start at the center and add and subtract an amount. How do I find that amount in a hyperbola?
Square at the sum of the denominator.
I add the denominators and take the square root. So what is that? Root 41. Now that is not a pleasant number, but it's what we have. So we're going to start at the center and we're going to add root 41. Now, are we going to add it to the negative 3 or to the negative 5? The 3, because we are going sideways, which is x. So negative 3 plus root 41, comma, negative 5. Negative 3 minus root 41, comma, -5. Those are my focus points, my foci for this hyperbola. Okay? Last thing, we need our asymptotes. Take very careful notes. If you don't know that form, write it down and get it learned. We're making this as easy as we can, kids. It can't be any easier. Point slope. What point do we always use? And what slope do we use? Well, it's how you built your box. You counted up how many and over how many. So your slope is 5/4. So y plus 5, remember the y goes with the 5, or the y goes with the y coordinate. And what do you say, 5/4? X plus 3, or y plus 5 equals -5/4, x plus 3. You always have two asymptotes. One has a positive slope, one has a negative slope, and they're the same number, because they came from the same box. Everybody got it? Find the center and the radius. Alright, this is the only one you have to fix the equation. All the rest of them, I give you the equation in standard form, but you need to fix this one. So who remembers how to do that?
Group the x's.
Group the x's together and the y's together. So we have x squared minus 8x plus blank. Don't forget to leave room for, whatever. Y squared plus 2y. And then this guy, remember, this extra number, if you have one, he has to go to the other side. Okay, who remembers how we fill the blanks? Take half of this number and square it. It's called completing the square. Half of this number and square it. So half of 8 is 4, squared is 16. You'll have a calculator. I hope you don't need it for that, but if you do, you'll have it. Add that to both sides. Half of 2 is 1, and squared is 1. Now, you have to make a parentheses squared for both the x and the y groupings. So what is our squared for this? X minus 4. And this one is y plus 1. Right? This one's a minus, this one's a plus. And now on that side, what have I got? 13. Remember, in the equation of a circle, this is a circle, this number right here is always r squared. In the equation, the number is r squared. Okay, you can make a note of that. That number is r squared. Which means that when I find my radius, I have to square root it, right? To get planar. And my center is what my center always is for -1, right? We find the center the same way for every shape. It's the opposite of what's in the parentheses. All right, everybody good with that? All right, now we have an ellipse. Start with center, always. Where's the center? -2, -5. Alright. Now look. Sideways 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. by the way, all of these points are gonna be vertices. So you'll notice there's 4 blanks there. You're gonna fill all 4 of those. Here are 2 of the points, so we're gonna fill them. And then up and down 5. So that's a -2, -10, put down there. So these 4 points are my vertices. I counted from my center, I counted sideways 4, and up and down 5. And these are my vertices. All 5 of those, or all 4 of those, go in your answer blank. Now, would you agree this is the longer axis? It's called major. And how long is it? 10. You went up and down 5, so it's 10. Here's your shorter one, and it is your minor axis, and it is 8. And the only thing left are your foci. They are on the longer axis, the major axis. So just like with your hyperbola that we already did, I don't know what those are if I know how far up and down I need to go. So what is it in this ellipse? Subtract the denominators, so what's 25 minus 16? 9, and the square root of 9 is 3, so I'm not even gonna have to deal with a radical this time. Usually I have a radical, right? So this time it's 25 minus 16, which is just a plain 3. So you're gonna start right here, and you're gonna go straight up 3. So where are you? Look at your graph paper. 1, 2, 3. What point is that? -2, -2. And then down 3, this will be -2, -8. Now, when they're radicals, we can't clean them up like that. But when it's 3, then you can say -8. Okay, I think we filled in all those blanks. Okay, so now we are ready for the last one on this page, which is a parabola. So right away, you can tell me where the vertex is very carefully. -1, 4. Now, tomorrow, kids, I will not be like saying, be careful. You're gonna have to watch that on your own. Your vertex is at -1, 4. By the way, what is your focal width? FW, your focal width is 16, positive 16. Now, to answer the rest of it, we need to know which way it opens.
Left.
Jacob says it opens left. Is he right? Yes, he is. How do we know? Because y squared is left and right. This is y squared. And since it's negative, it has to be left. The focus is in here somewhere, just like it is for your hyperbola. And the directrix will be out here someplace. And I'll tell you where they are once I figure out this distance. How do we do it with a parabola?
4p.
We know this number is always 4p, and this number is always p. In the graph, it's p. In the equation, it's 4p. So if 4p is 16, then p must be 4. So I'm gonna start right here at my vertex, and I'm gonna back up 4. So where am I if I back up 4?
-5.
Yep. Kids, you have graph paper, just count it. Now I'm gonna go ahead 4. So where am I if I go ahead 4?
X equals 3.
X equals 3. Xavier, what are you doing? Did you do this with your tutor? Okay, well you still need to participate. So I need you to go ahead and open up your iPad, go to Schoology, and you're gonna go print another copy, because you're gonna work along with
I
us.
didn't do that. I just did this one.
Okay, I need you to be participating. All right, I think we're done with that problem, aren't we? We done? Okay. Focal width, we already did, we said that was 16, right? The focal width is that number right there, and that's positive 16. Okay? All right, now, on to the writing the equations. So the first, well, I don't know where we're going to be on the chest, but in this, the first 4 questions were, here's the equation, find the info. Now, we're gonna do, here's the info, find the equation. All right, so this is gonna be a circle. And we know that the diameter has endpoints at -2, 4, and 610. And we're gonna write the equation of the circle. So I want you to think back to the problem where you completed the square. Didn't your equation end up looking like this, or end up looking like this? You had an x squared and a y squared and an equal to a number? That's what you want to end up with here. That is exactly what we want to end up with. So what do we need to figure out? If we want to fill these parentheses, we need to know the center, the midpoint. So average, what is -2 plus 6? 4 divided by 2, 2. So average these. -2 plus 6 is 4, divided by 2 is 2. 4 and 10 is 14, divided by 2 is 7. So now I can set up that much of my equation. Right? Now what else do I need? I need the radius, which is either this distance or this distance. They're the same, so it doesn't matter, whichever one you want to do. And how do we find that distance? We use our distance formula. And the distance formula says, I'm going to use these, if you take x minus x and square it, y minus y and square it, add them together and take the square root, that will be your distance. So 2 minus 6 is 4, squared is 16. Oh my gosh. 7 minus 10 is 3, squared is 9. Does that distance work out to be 5? Usually it's a radical. In the equation always goes r squared. Make a note of that. Remind yourself, in the equation always goes r squared. So what number is going to go here? 25. R squared.
If I forgot the distance formula, would I be able to do the Pythagorean?
Yep. The distance formula came straight from the Pythagorean theorem. So absolutely, that will work every time. Every time. You just wanna make sure you're showing your work, so I know what's happening. All right, next, number 6, write the equation of the ellipse. Okay, so I remember that an ellipse has an equation that looks like this. And if I forget, I can always look back at my test and look at question number 3, because 3 is the equation of an ellipse. So this is exactly what you want number 6 to look like. Does that make sense to you? Yep. All right, so what do I know? I know that I have major axis endpoints at 2, 9, and 2, -3, and minor axis endpoints at 0, 3, and 4, 3. So in other words, I know my ellipse looks like that. Wow, I hope my test question is this easy. Because on graph paper, if you draw in your major and minor axis, aren't you gonna be able to tell what your center is without even doing any math? Do you see what I'm saying? What is that thing? 2, 3. Now you can figure it out other ways. Certainly, you can figure it out other ways, but your picture will tell you your center is at 2, 3. So x -2, y -3. In an ellipse, does it make a difference whether I have x first or y first in an ellipse? No, because that's a plus, so you can put it whatever order you want. Just make sure the 2 is with the x and the 3 is with the y. Now, how am I going to figure out my denominators? How far sideways did we go? 4? Well, total is 4, which means each way is 2, which means this number is a 4. How far up and down did I go? 6, 12 total, but up 6 and down 6, which means that is a 36. I hope you've got some confidence. I hope you're thinking you can do this. So I think you can. All right, so now I'm going to do a parabola. If you forget what the equation of a parabola looks like, look back at question 4. Because 4 is your parabola question. So this is what it looks like. What do I know? Focus is at -3, 7. Be careful. I remember one pitfall sometimes is kids want to put these numbers in the equation. This is not the vertex, this is the focus. So these numbers are not going into the equation. We have to find our vertex. The directrix is x = 5. Now, what you should be able to tell from your picture is, which way does it open? Left? Would everybody agree left? Would everybody agree that my picture has to look, where's my focus? My picture has to look like this? Now, if it opens left, what's squared? Y. And don't forget to make that number negative at some point. You don't necessarily have to do it right now, but that number has to end up negative because left is a negative. Now, in the parentheses is going to go your vertex. And your vertex is going to be right here. Would everybody agree with that? Now, Now remember, you count back and forth the same amount, even though it doesn't look like it in my picture. We're counting back and forth the same amount. So this has to be right in the middle, and you have graph paper, so yours is gonna look better. What is right in the middle of -3 and 5? 1. So this is the point 1, 7. That is your vertex. Look, from 1 to 5 is 4. From 1 to -3 is 4. That's right in the middle. So x -1, y -7. This problem has trickiness written all over it. You have to be careful. This distance right here in the picture is called p. In the equation, that number is 4p. So what's that number going to be? What's p? 4. So that number's got to be a 16. Now, you already marked it negative. It has to be a -16 because you're opening to the left. Okay? And one more. Now we're going to write the equation of a hyperbola which looks like this. And again, if you get confused, what does that look like? Look back at the hyperbola problem, number 5. Oh, no. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong test. Number 1. Number 1 is your hyperbola problem. Okay, so what do we know? We know our center is at -1, 2. It opens vertically, which means I count up and down a certain amount and draw my picture in like this, vertically. And the transverse is 16, so this to this is 16, and the conjugate is 18. All right, well, I got a lot going on in that picture. Remember, nobody's grading that, it's for me. For you. What can you tell me about my equation? Jacob?
You go up. You go up 8.
Okay, so, first, let's get my variables up here so I know where to put that number. So since I'm opening vertically,
Y is first.
I'm gonna have a Y here and an X here. Since I know my center, I'm gonna have X plus 1 and Y minus 2. Agreed? Now, Jacob, you have figured out that because that axis is 16, that I must be going up and down 8, which means under Y must be a 64. And I'm going sideways, well, the whole thing is 18, so I'm going back and forth 9. So under X is 81. Okay? It's a sad day, last practice test. Even with all my, stopping and lecturing you and yelling at Xavier, all this, even with all that, it took us less than half an hour. Okay? So time is not going to be a factor. You're going to look very carefully. What will be a factor is if you screw up the center, for example, because that's bad. So you're going to pay real close attention to that. Okay? So, in our remaining time, we have two options. If there is, and there is no option that we sit and do nothing, all right? So, get that out of your mind, that's not an option. Your two options are, if there is something that we just did 8 problems that are just like on the test. If you feel like you need extra practice with, I don't know, writing the equation of a parabola, we can do that right now, okay? Or we can put all this aside and look at our exam review materials. So you decide, it's up to you. This is your time. One of those two options. Does anybody have anything you feel like you need extra practice for tomorrow's test? This test is tomorrow.
Does the whole class have to like agree on one of it?
No, we can do a little of both, right? So I mean, if nobody has any test questions, then we'll go straight to exam review. Eddie, is your hand going up?
Yeah, we do another one like the last one for the 8.
Yes. What was that going on? That was writing the equation of a hyperbola. So we have a hyperbola. I got to plan this a little bit here. We have a hyperbola. And I know that the endpoints of the transverse axis are 3, -5, and -7, -5. And I know that the slope of an asymptote is, I'll be really careful here, 3/5. All right, I'm gonna write the equation of parabola, or hyperbola, hyperbola, so this is what I know. So, let's see, transverse axis, 3, -5, and -7, -5. Now, just look at that. This is the transverse axis. Doesn't that tell me that these 2 points are the vertices, and therefore my hyperbola opens sideways? So in terms of my equation, what's gonna come first? If I know I'm opening sideways, X is gonna come first. And if these are my vertices, isn't my center gonna be right in the middle of all that? So -7 and 3, I need the midpoint of that. So you can count on your graph paper always, or you can average -7 and 3. The average would be -2. Okay, Eddie, you still with me?
Yep.
So I got X plus 2 and Y plus 5 as my center. Now I also know that from my center, I'm counting left and right, how much? 5, which means under under X, I'm going sideways, under X is 25. Everybody good so far? Now, they told me the slope of the asymptote is 3/5. Now what that means is if I'm building the box, I'm counting up 3 and over 5. Now, does the over 5 part make sense to you in terms of the picture? So if I'm counting up 3, what does that tell me about what's under Y? It's gotta be a 9. Okay, Ed? Anybody else for tomorrow's test? Tomorrow is the test. What else, Xavier?
Keep going like
Number 6. This is an ellipse. So its equation will look like this, only that's a plus. And let's say that we know the endpoints of the major axis are 3, -2, and 3, 18. Those are endpoints of the major axis. And the conjugate axis is 14 units long. Alright, so here we go. Endpoints of the major. 3, -2, and 3, 18. Now that is my major axis, so whatever the ellipse looks like, it's going to be like that. Would you agree with that, Xavier? Where is my center going to be? Right in the middle of these two, because I count up and down the same amount, right? So that's at 18, that's at -2. On your graph paper, you could start going like this and figure out what the middle is. Or you could average them, and it looks like the middle is 8. So Xavier, I'm counting up and down how much? Same amount. How much is it? Going up and down. How far is it from 8 to 18? 10. So you're going up 10 and down 10, which means under y has to be what? A 100. Remember, square root of that tells me how far up and down to go. Make a note of that. If you forgot, the square root of that number tells you how, under y, tells you how far up and down to go. Now, the conjugate axis, I said conjugate, I should have said minor, sorry. Getting things all confused. The minor axis is 14. So that is 14. Which means what? I'm going back and forth, 7, which means under x has to be 49. And I figured out my center, I never wrote it down, so there's my center. Okay, anybody else have a question about tomorrow? Everybody's ready, or will be after you spend a little time practicing tonight. You can always redo that practice test on your own time. Okay, good. All right, well, let's look at our exam review materials. And let's look at the one that does not say number 2. It also doesn't say number 1. I should fix that. It is the one that doesn't say number 2 on it. If the problem is circled, it means you are not responsible for it. So there are a few circled problems. You don't need to concern yourself with those. If the problem has a star next to it, it means it will be on the calculator part. So as you are practicing and reviewing, try not to use your calculator unless the problem is starred. If the problem has a C next to it, that means it's you guys only. So you are responsible for all of the C problems. Okay, so there's no way we got a few minutes here, but no way we can get through all this. So does anybody see one that you want to start with?
I don't think I was given one.
Well, they're right there. They're right here if you don't have one. And when these are gone, they're gone. So you guys that take them and lose them, classmates hate you. All right. Does anybody see one that we need to, that you would like to review?
13.
Hmm?
13.
13. This is a matrix, stuff. And there are several parts to number 13. So A plus 2B. So A plus 2 B's. Now, first of all, I probably should have checked before I wrote it down. Can these be added? Yes, because that's a 2 by 2 and that's a 2 by 2. So they can be added. So first thing I'm going to do is distribute that 2. It's called scalar multiplication, but it's really distributing. I'm just going to distribute the 2 to everything. So 2 times 0, 2 times 5, 2 times 4, 2 times 1. Now I'm going to add these, and I'm going to add them corresponding. So 1 plus 0, 2 plus 10, 3 plus 8, and negative 5 plus 2. The second part says, find the determinant of C. Oops. So the determinant of C okay, Sammy, are you writing this down? You're taking this exam, dude. Alright, so the determinant, sometimes we use vertical bars for that. Anybody remember how to do this?
Take the first 2 lines and then.
First 2 columns and write them over here. Look familiar? And then what do we do?
Diagonal.
Multiply. So we're going to multiply those and get 0. And we're going to multiply these and get 0. And we're going to multiply those and get negative 2. And then we're going to total all that up. So multiply, 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 add them up. Now, other way around. Multiply 0, multiply 3, and multiply 4. Add them up. So for these I got negative 2, for these I got 7. What do I do with those 2 numbers? Somebody's got to remember. Subtract. So negative 2 minus 7 is your answer. So the answer is negative 9. Remember, we have practice tests, review material over all this stuff. So you can always go back and rewatch those videos or look at your practice work from these earlier chapters. All right, A times B. Now I'm going to multiply A times B. Now again, the rules for multiplication are kind of weird. This guy, oh my gosh, I'm so stiff. This guy is a 2 by 2, 2 rows, 2 columns. This guy is a 2 by 2, 2 rows, 2 columns. Do you remember what the rule is for multiplication? These have to match. And then your answer will be that big. So my answer is going to be a 2 by 2. So in other words, it's going to have 4 numbers just like these guys do. Anybody remember how we find those 4 numbers? So we take this row, so we take 1, 2, and this column, it's always rows, columns, and we multiply first number times first number, second number times second number, and add them together. So this number is an 8. 0 plus 8. Then we take the 1 and 2 again, and we multiply it times the 5 and the 1. So that becomes a 7. Now we go to the second row. So we're going to use the 3 and the negative 5. And we're going to multiply it by the 0, 4. And by the 5, 1. So when we take row 2, column 1, that gives us negative 20. And row 2, column 2 gives us 10. And there you go. And then finally, the last part of that says take matrix A and find its inverse. Anybody remember how to do this?
Oh, you do the opposite.
So first I make a new matrix by taking these two and swapping them. And then these two, I change their signs. Okay, that's one part of it. There's a whole nother part though. Do you remember what the other part is? We gotta find the determinant of this.
Oh, you gotta put
So to find the determinant, we take 1 times negative 5, 3 times 2, and subtract. So what is that? What's 1 times negative 5 minus 3 times 2? Negative 11. Now remember what you do with the negative 11? You divide all these numbers by negative 11. And then you clean it up when you put it in the answer blank. So positive 5 11ths, positive 2 11ths, positive 3 11ths, and negative 1 11th. That seem okay to everybody? All right, that was a big problem, Jacob. All right, we got one more. Let's do one more. Look at the practice test. If it's not circled, you're responsible for it. So what do you think?
$21.
41?
21.
21? This calculator problem. 5-card hand, what is the probability that you will get at least 3 aces? Okay, what does at least 3 aces mean? This is a 5-card hand. So what does that mean? At least 3 means I could get 3 aces, or I could get 4 aces. Now you can't get 5 because there aren't 5, right? So it's 3 or 4. And this is a probability question. So my denominator is going to be 52C5. Do you remember that we had a whole page of problems and the denominator was 52C5? Because the denominator is the total. And that's how many hands there are in the deck, 5-card hands in the deck. All right, now. This is a little tricky because this is a 5-card hand. So if 3 of them are aces, doesn't that mean you have 2 not aces, 2 cards that aren't aces in this hand right here? Okay, how many aces are in the deck? 4, and we're picking 3 of them. And, so I'm going to multiply. 2 not aces. How many not aces are in the whole deck? 48, and you're picking 2 of them. So this right here is 3 aces and 2 other cards. That's your 5. Or, remember that with the big old plus? Or we could get 4 aces and 1 other card. So what would that look like? 4 aces and 1 other card. 4C4 and 48C1. Because it's a 5-card hand. If you happen to have all 4 aces, you're still going to have some other card. Right? You type that in on your calculator and that's the answer. Okay, that's kind of a trick. These are easy. This matrix stuff is easy. Everybody should be studying, reviewing, getting ready for that. Are you gonna have to take this?